You don't really need the whole basement to yourself, my mother said, passing the bread basket like she hadn't just detonated a grenade at the dinner table. Your brother is coming home. He needs this space more than you do. I set my fork down. I didn't throw it. I didn't raise my voice. I just set it down very carefully on the edge of my plate and looked at her. He's bringing Courtney too, my father added, not looking up from his pot roast. They need somewhere to land while they get back on their feet, you understand. I understood a great many things in that moment. I understood that my brother Derek had quit his third job in 2 years. I understood that Courtney, his girlfriend of 8 months, had never once paid a bill that wasn't automatically charged to someone else's credit card. I understood that the basement I had spent 14 months and $26,000 converting into a functioning studio was being offered to them the way you toss a dog a treat, casually, without a second thought about where the treat came from. When? I asked. End of the month, Mom said. We figured you could move your equipment upstairs. The guest room has that little desk by the window. It's cozy. Cozy. The guest room desk was a particle board relic from 2003 that wobbled if you breathed on it. My studio had 3 monitors, a professional lighting rig, acoustic panels I had custom ordered from a supplier in Vermont, a standing desk that cost more than most people's monthly rent, and a dedicated fiber line I paid for separately because the household internet couldn't handle my client video calls without turning into a slideshow of buffering screens. I had built that space from a water-damaged storage room that smelled like mildew and forgotten holiday decorations. I had hired the contractors. I had picked every fixture, every cable management solution, every square foot of soundproofing foam. I had done this because I worked from home as a brand strategist, and working from home meant I needed a space that functioned like a real office, not a corner of someone else's life. My clients were mid-sized companies paying me good money to make them look credible. It was very difficult to look credible when a cat knocked over a lamp in the background of a strategy presentation. I'll think about it, I said. My mother smiled, satisfied. She had heard what she wanted to hear. I had not said yes. What I had actually done, in the 10 seconds between setting down my fork and picking it back up, was make a decision. It wasn't emotional. It wasn't reactive. It was the kind of decision that arrives fully formed, cold and complete, like ice that has been freezing for a very long time, and finally reaches the point where nothing can stop it from being solid. I finished my dinner. I complimented the pot roast. I helped clear the table. Then I went downstairs to my studio, sat in my chair, opened my laptop, and started researching apartments. I should explain what the last 3 years had looked like, because context matters. I was 28. I had been living at my parents' house since I went fully remote at 25, which had seemed logical at the time. The rent I paid them was below market, I could save aggressively, and my parents were genuinely happy to have me there. Or so I believed. What I had not fully registered until much later was the gradual accumulation of responsibilities that had attached themselves to my presence. It started small. I fixed the router when it went down. I called the plumber when the kitchen sink backed up because my father didn't like confrontational phone calls, which apparently included calls to plumbers. I added myself to the car insurance account when Derek crashed his bumper and my parents couldn't figure out the claims portal. Then the contributions grew. The grocery order that I started placing because Mom kept forgetting things and the substitutions annoyed her. The streaming subscriptions that somehow migrated onto my card. The property tax installment my father mentioned in passing in a tone that made it clear mentioning it was a form of asking. The new refrigerator that died on a Thursday and needed replacing before the weekend, which I put on my card because it was faster. I told myself I was helping. I told myself I was lucky to earn enough to help. I told myself this was what you did for family. What I had actually done was make myself structurally indispensable in ways nobody acknowledged because acknowledgement would have required awareness, and awareness would have required honesty about what was happening. I was the house's operating system, invisible when functional, noticed only when something stopped working. The apartment I found was on the 7th floor of a building 12 minutes from a coffee shop I already liked. It had floor-to-ceiling windows and a second bedroom I could convert into an office. The lease started in 3 weeks. I signed the digital documents at 11:45 that same night. Sitting in the studio, my mother had already mentally repainted. I didn't tell anyone. The following week, I operated normally. I had dinner with the family 3 times. I fixed the router once, out of habit, then felt mildly annoyed at myself for doing it. I answered questions about Derek's timeline, nodded at Courtney's plans to get into content creation, and made appropriate interested sounds when my mother described what color she thought Derek might want the basement painted. Sage green is very in right now, Courtney had said at one point, during a dinner where she had appeared unannounced and eaten a substantial amount of food she had not contributed to making. I said. On the Monday of my last week, I spent 4 hours on administrative tasks that had nothing to do with my clients. The fiber internet line I had installed was in my name. I called the provider and scheduled a disconnection. The household would revert to the basic cable package my parents had before I upgraded it. Basic cable internet in this neighborhood ran at speeds suitable for checking email, and not much else. The grocery delivery account was under my email address. I downloaded all my saved payment methods and closed the account. I left my mother a note, handwritten, explaining that she would need to create a new account with her own information. I made it friendly. I wrote it in my best handwriting. The emergency card I had given my father 2 years ago for house expenses, which had most recently been used for a leaf blower he wanted, and 2 streaming services I had never heard of, I reported as lost and requested a replacement sent to my new address. The smart home system I had installed, which controlled the thermostat, the exterior lights, and the garage door, was linked to my phone. I transferred ownership to my father's email and removed myself from the account. I left him written instructions for how to access it. 4 pages with screenshots. I was thorough. The landscaping service was billed to me automatically. I canceled it. The pest control contract, which renewed annually in the spring, was in my name. I did not renew it. I was not destroying anything. I was not sabotaging anything. I was simply removing my name from things that had never been mine to carry in the first place and returning the household to the state it would have been in if I had never been there. On my last Friday, I hired movers. My parents were at my aunt's birthday lunch, which I had reminded them about twice, and then deliberately not attended myself, citing a client deadline. Derek and Courtney were presumably somewhere doing whatever they did, which, as far as I could tell, involved a lot of sitting in the driveway on their phones. The movers were fast. By 2 p.m, the studio was empty. The acoustic panels left perfect rectangular shadows on the walls where they had hung. The cable channels I had installed were still there. The overhead lighting I had put in was still there. What was gone was everything I had brought. I swept the floor. I wiped down the counters. I left the key to the basement door on the kitchen table with a note that said, simply, good luck with the new setup. I hope it works out. No drama, no goodbye speech. No final confrontation where I said all the things I had been composing in my head for 3 years. I drove to my new apartment. The movers arrived 40 minutes later. By 7 that evening, I was sitting on my own floor, surrounded by boxes, eating Thai food I had ordered to my new address, and feeling something I didn't have a precise word for. Not happy, exactly. Not sad. Something cleaner than both. Like a room after all the furniture has been moved out and you can finally see the actual shape of it. The first contact came on Wednesday. Mom. Maya, the internet is so slow. It keeps stopping when I try to watch my show. Did you change something before you left? I waited 2 hours before responding. Me. I disconnected the business fiber line when I moved out. That was on my account. You're on the standard cable internet now. You might need to upgrade the plan if you want to stream in HD. Mom, what do you mean you disconnected it? We use that too. Me? I know. It was under my name and I was paying for it. I've moved out, so it made sense to close the account. The cable company can set you up with a new plan pretty easily. She didn't respond to that for a while. When she did, the message was simply, okay. My father called Thursday about the thermostat. He couldn't figure out why it wasn't responding to the wall panel. I had sent him the instructions, but he hadn't read them. I left you the login information, I said. Did you check the document on the kitchen counter? The one in the blue folder. I don't have time to read a document, Maya. Can you just come fix it? I'm in the middle of a client deliverable, Dad. The instructions are in the blue folder. It should take about 5 minutes once you log into the app. He made a sound that was half frustration and half something else, the particular tone he used when he expected to be managed and wasn't. Fine, he said. I'll figure it out. He did figure it out, eventually. It took him most of the afternoon based on the timestamp of the app notification I received when the new admin account was confirmed. But he figured it out. 2 weeks after I moved, Derek and Courtney officially arrived. I knew because Courtney posted a reel on Instagram, tour of our new creative space. She wrote over footage of herself walking around the basement, pointing at the empty walls and the blank floor where my standing desk had been. The ring light she'd brought was positioned badly and cast a greenish shadow across one side of her face. The caption included the phrase, "building from scratch," which I found interesting given that what they were actually building from was the infrastructure of a room someone else had constructed entirely. The comments were 15 people saying cute, and one person asking if that was a basement. I watched it once, put my phone face down on my new desk, and got back to work. Week 3 brought the grocery situation. My mother called on a Sunday morning, which was unusual because she generally texted. "The grocery account isn't working," she said when I picked up. "It keeps saying my email isn't recognized." "I closed that account when I moved out," I said. "You'll need to make a new one with your email. It only takes a few minutes." Silence. "You closed it?" "It was under my email and my payment info." I left a note explaining that. I didn't see any note. I had left the note on the kitchen counter in an envelope with her name on it in large letters. I did not say this. "You can make a new account at the same site," I said. "Just use your email and add your card. All your usual items are saved as a list so you can just reorder them." "I don't know how to do that." "Mom, you order things online all the time." "That's different." "It's actually exactly the same." She hung up shortly afterward. I imagined she was irritated. I also imagined that within 20 minutes she would have figured it out because she was a functioning adult who had successfully navigated computers for 30 years, and the only reason she hadn't done this herself before was that I had always done it first. I was right. She figured it out. I know because 3 days later she sent me a photo of a grocery delivery on the porch with a caption that said, "See, I did it." I sent back a thumbs up and meant it genuinely. The first month passed, then 6 weeks. I was deep into 2 new client projects, both of which were going well. My studio was coming together. I had painted the second bedroom a warm white and installed better overhead lighting. The acoustics weren't perfect yet, but I had ordered panels. The standing desk was reassembled. The 3 monitors were up. I had a work call most mornings by 9 and rarely finished before 7, but the hours were mine. The silence in my apartment was specific. Nobody knocked on the door to ask about the router. Nobody mentioned that a bill was due in the particular tone that meant someone else was expected to pay it. Nobody's boyfriend arrived for dinner without warning and ate the leftovers I had been counting on for lunch. Then October arrived, and with it, Derek called. I almost didn't answer. I had him on the list of numbers I screened by default, which required a conscious decision each time to override. I overrode it. "Hey," he said. He sounded tired, which was different from his usual tone, which was the relaxed confidence of someone who had never once experienced a consequence. "Hey," I said. "So," he cleared his throat, "things are kind of rough over here." "Okay." "The internet downstairs is terrible. Like, legitimately unusable for anything. Courtney can't upload her content without it timing out, and I've been trying to do job applications online and it takes forever." I waited. "Dad keeps saying he's going to call the cable company to upgrade, but he hasn't, and Mom is stressed about it, and the thermostat keeps doing this thing where it doesn't—" "Derek," I kept my voice even. "Did you call the cable company?" "I mean, not yet. I was going to ask you to—" "You can call them," I said. "The number is on the bill. You just tell them you want to upgrade the internet package. They'll walk you through it. Quiet." I also wanted to say, he said, and the shift in his tone told me he was about to arrive at the actual point of the call. "The basement is kind of not set up great. Courtney really needs better lighting for her videos. And the ceiling is lower than she expected. And there's this echo. The acoustic panels were mine," I said. "I took them when I moved. You'd need to get your own." "Right. But like, where do you even buy those?" "Amazon. They're not expensive. You can get a starter set for under $100. Another pause. I imagined him on the other end computing whether this was going to cost him money, and if so, whether there was a pathway where it cost me money instead. "Yeah," he said finally. "Okay." He didn't ask about the panels again. He also didn't buy them, based on what Courtney continued posting on Instagram, where the echo in her videos remained audible, and she had taken to calling it her signature sound. November was when everything surfaced at once. My mother called on a Tuesday night, then my father, then Derek, then my mother again. In the span of about 40 minutes, I let the first 3 go to voicemail. I answered the 4th because 3 calls in 40 minutes meant something had actually happened, and I was still, despite everything, someone who answered when something actually happened. The furnace, my mother said. Her voice was doing the thing it did when she was scared but presenting as angry. It's making a noise and then it stopped. It's 54 degrees in the house. When did it stop? About an hour ago. Your father was trying to adjust the thermostat and something happened. Did he call a furnace repair company? He doesn't know who to call. I closed my eyes. I breathed once carefully. Mom, I said, type furnace repair and your zip code into Google. Call the first company that has emergency service. Tell them the furnace stopped. They'll come out. What if they charge a lot? They will charge a lot because it's an emergency call. That's how emergency service works. Maya, I don't live there anymore, I said. It came out gentler than I expected. I can't fix the furnace from my apartment. But you can find someone who can. You've handled harder things than a Google search. She inhaled sharply and then, instead of the argument I anticipated, said, Okay, fine. They got the furnace fixed that night. It cost $420 for the emergency call, which I know because my father texted me the receipt as if I had ordered it. I texted back, hope it's warm in there now. He didn't respond. The meeting happened in mid-November. Not at the house. I had made that clear. There was a diner near the highway exit between my apartment and their neighborhood that had good coffee and enough ambient noise to discourage extended emotional scenes. I suggested it and they agreed, which told me they were past the point of making demands about location. They looked different than I expected. My father had aged somehow in the 2 months since I'd moved out, or maybe I was just seeing him more clearly in fluorescent diner lighting without the softening effect of living alongside someone every day. My mother's hair was down when she usually kept it up. Derek was across from her, hunched slightly, his hands around a mug of coffee he hadn't touched. Courtney wasn't there. She's not feeling well, my mother said when I asked. I ordered black coffee. I didn't look at the menu. We wanted to talk, my father started. His voice had the particular weight of a man who was accustomed to authority and was not currently in a position to exercise it, but hadn't yet accepted this. About the situation at home. Okay, I said. Things have been difficult, my mother said. The furnace and the internet and the grocery thing. There are a lot of things we didn't realize you were handling. I understand, I said. The utilities have been higher than expected, my father said. Having Derek and Courtney in the basement, the heating down there is... I didn't set up the heating in the basement, I said. That would be the house's original system. I just had a space heater in my office, which I took when I left. Derek made a small sound. We need you to come back, my mother said. She said it plainly, without decoration, which told me she had been practicing it. Or, we need you to help us figure some of this out. The finances are tight. Derek is still looking for work. And with the baby, I set my coffee cup down. What baby? I said. My mother blinked. Courtney is 11 weeks. They found out last month. I looked at Derek. He rubbed the back of his neck. We were going to tell you. I sat with that information for a moment. I filed it somewhere that I would look at later, privately, and in the meantime, I kept my face in the neutral professional expression I used for difficult client conversations. I'm glad you told me, I said. Congratulations, Maya, my father said, and his voice had changed now. The authority was gone, and what was underneath it was something I hadn't seen very often. We're asking for help. We know we didn't handle the situation with the basement well. We should have talked to you more. But this is family, and we need... Dad. I said it the same way I would have said it at 15, at 20, at any of the hundreds of moments I had been about to say something and hadn't. Can I say something? He nodded. I paid the electric bill in that house for 2.5 years. I paid for the furnace inspection the spring before last. I paid for the roof repair in 2022, the whole back portion, $12,000. I bought the refrigerator. I paid for the internet upgrade. I funded the emergency card that was used for things that were not emergencies. I renovated the basement with my own savings because I needed a real office and it made the whole house more functional. I wasn't raising my voice. The people in the booth next to us were not alarmed. I did all of that because I wanted to help, and because I could, and because I love you. But somewhere in there, it stopped being help and started being an expectation. And when I had one space that was mine, that I built with my own time and my own money, the conversation at dinner wasn't, how do we solve Derek's housing situation? It was, Maya doesn't need this as much, so Maya will give it up. My mother's eyes were bright. Not crying yet, but close. You didn't ask if I would give it up. You told me. And you expected me to accept it because I always accept things. I've been accepting things for 3 years. You never said anything, Derek said, and I could tell from his tone that he thought this was a point in his favor. No, I agreed. I didn't. That's on me. But here I am, saying something now. My father leaned forward. So, what does that mean? You're just done? You're walking away from your family? I'm not walking away from my family, I said. I moved into my own apartment. Those are different things. I'm 11 minutes away. I'll come to Thanksgiving. I'll send gifts when the baby comes. I'll show up when things genuinely matter. But I'm not coming back to live in the sewing room so that Derek has space to look for jobs he isn't applying for. And I'm not going to restart all the accounts I closed because the expectation was that I'd always be there to manage them. We can't afford the upgrade the cable company quoted, my mother said. She had moved past the emotional moment into logistics, which was her coping mechanism. There's a mid-tier plan that's a significant improvement over basic. It's $62 a month. I'll cover it for 6 months while things stabilize, and then it transfers to you. That's what I can offer right now. She blinked. She had expected either a total refusal or a total capitulation, and I had given her neither. That's it, my father said. That's it, I said. I'm not the solution to this situation. You have a house, you have income between you, and you have a son who is capable of employment. Those are the pieces you need to work with. I paid for the coffees, all 4 of them. I picked up the check without making it a gesture. It was just the thing I did because I was the one who had called the meeting and it felt like the right way to close it. Outside, the air was cold and carried the particular sharpness of late November, when winter is done being polite about its arrival. My father hugged me before I got to my car. It was brief and stiff in the way his hugs always were, but it was there. My mother held on a few seconds longer. I'm sorry, she said quietly, her chin near my shoulder. About the basement. I know, I said. And I did. I believed her. I drove back to my apartment. On the way, I passed a hardware store and remembered I had been meaning to buy a better lamp for the reading corner, and I pulled in and bought one. It was a floor lamp with a warm bulb, the kind that makes a room look like somewhere a person actually lives. That evening, I put the lamp in the corner and turned it on. I made pasta. I ate at my own table, which was a real table I had chosen myself and not an inherited one that wobbled. I opened the window slightly because I liked a little cold air when I cooked, and nobody was there to complain about the draft. There were no calls that night. Not because anything was broken, but because nothing was broken. My client sent an email at 8:15 with the subject line, "Loved the proposal. Let's move forward." The retainer was more than I had quoted. She wanted to start in December. I sent back a confirmation, professional and warm, and then I sat in the light of my lamp and let the quiet of the apartment settle around me the way it always did now, not as emptiness, but as presence. The presence of a life that belonged entirely to myself. A week later, Courtney posted a new reel from the basement. The lighting was marginally better. She had gotten a ring light. The echo was still there. She was talking about her pregnancy journey and monetizing the content, and she looked genuinely excited, and I found that I hoped it worked out for her. Not in a complicated way, just simply. Derek texted me on a Friday asking if I knew a good resume template. I sent him 3 links and a brief note about tailoring the objective statement. He said thanks. I said sure. My father figured out the thermostat on his own the following week and texted me a photo of the app screen with the words, "Finally got it working." I texted back a flame emoji because that seemed right. My mother started a new grocery account. She found a coupon code her first week that saved her $14 and mentioned it to me on the phone in a tone of genuine satisfaction. There is a version of this story where I came back, where I absorbed the guilt and repacked my life into a closet-sized guest room and resumed my role as the household utility no one thought to thank. I can see that version clearly. I lived adjacent to it for 3 years. There is also a version where I never helped in the first place, where I kept every dollar and never answered the call about the furnace and didn't show up to the diner at all. I can see that version too. It isn't the one I chose either. What I chose was the version in between, the one that required me to know the difference between love and servitude, and to understand that you can offer one without offering the other forever. You can take care of people. You can show up for people. You can hand your father 4 pages of instructions and genuinely hope he reads them. You can pay for 6 months of internet and mean it without condition. But you cannot let the people who love you treat you like infrastructure. Not because they are villains, they are not. They are just people who got used to a certain way of things and didn't examine it closely enough. The examining was mine to do. And eventually, I did it. 12 minutes from a coffee shop I already liked. A lamp in the corner that makes the room look like somewhere a person actually lives. An inbox with a new retainer waiting to be invoiced. I'm home.